the whites cut out. They flee to the suburbs. And the community that you thought you were integrating soon becomes another all-black slum, another all-black ghetto.
It might have been whipped up by militant, anti-white black Muslims. It might have been poverty.
We should control the politics and the politicians in the community where we live. We should control the businesses and create employment opportunities for ourselves. And the social philosophy of black nationalism only means that we should do something to uplift the standard and the level of our own society and put it on par with others.
So, what do you know about Malcolm X?
Historically, Malcolm X was a Muslim by faith, but he also was a black leader in the 60s who led several movements for civil rights for blacks in the 60s. And a lot of things he did has helped us today in terms of progress.
And how do you think Malcolm X influenced the Black Power movement?
How do I think he influenced the Black Power movement?
Yes.
Well, he was somewhat of a martyr in essence after he died, because it kind of led to kind of bringing together some of the Muslim blacks and the Christian blacks, and a lot of things he said where he was recorded on TV of some of the radical things that were called radical were really just pushing back to say, hey, this isn't right, and black people deserve more equal rights than what we're getting right now. So I looked at a lot of they showed a lot of his older interviews, a lot of the quotes, books that came out regarding Malcolm X. And at the time he was called radical, it really wasn't radical. It was just him fighting, trying to fight for rights for blacks.
Okay.
Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His father, Earl Little, was a preacher and avid supporter of black nationalist leader Marcus Garvey. Due to his family's activism, he had many encounters with racism at an early age. His family was harassed multiple times by the Ku Klux Klan and racist mobs, forcing his family to move to Michigan. In 1931, his father's body was discovered out on streetcar tracks. Despite the evidence of multiple threats from white supremacists, his death was ruled a suicide, demonstrating the dishonesty and corruption of the system during the time. Malcolm X's mother never recovered from the grief of her husband's death and was committed to a mental institution in 1937. Since he was forced to live on his own, Malcolm X became involved with the city's criminal underground and started selling drugs. In 1946, he was arrested and sentenced to 10 years in jail, where he converted to the Nation of Islam. Once he was released, he became a powerful leader of black nationalism. He was a natural speaker and passionate about the cause, urging for a militant stance on expelling racism for good. In 1964, Malcolm X broke with the Nation of Islam after learning that his mentor, Elijah Muhammad, violated many of his own teachings. However, that same year, Malcolm X embarked on an extended trip to the Middle East and North Africa, which marked a spiritual turning point in his life. He learned to put the civil rights movement within the context of a global anti-colonial struggle. In fact, when he returned to the U.S., he was less angry and more optimistic about peace. Before people got a chance to see his transformation, Malcolm X was assassinated on the evening of February 21st, 1965, at the Audubon Ballroom in Manhattan. He was shot 15 times by members of the Nation of Islam while delivering a speech. He was pronounced dead on the arrival to the hospital.
He meant a great deal to me and my people. I'm sorry that a good man is gone. But the first I hear of it, I couldn't have cried anymore, I don't believe, if I had lost my mother.
What did he mean to you? Can you tell me a bit more about it?
He meant deliverance for my people. And I hope we all walk in the same footsteps as Malcolm X was walking in.
And there were many Americans who came, but none, without exception, who had the impact that Malcolm had. the man of a message. And the message was not to America only.
Of all the leaders that I knew and loved and admired and had walked with and walked behind, this one, as I said before, had been closest to me. I felt I was losing a son. So I thought that I would like my children and generations to come to know this most important aspect of Malcolm X, that he was indeed our manhood, you know, our shining black prince who didn't hesitate to die because he loved us so. I thought that in honoring him, we honored the best in ourselves. When the funeral was over, and then the Muslims came and dressed him for a proper Muslim burial. And after that, we went out to the cemetery. And when we got there, you know, the professional grave diggers were standing there with their shovels, but some of the black brothers said, no, we can't let you do that. We dig this grave. You know, we cover this brother with dirt. And I was proud at that moment to be black.
I knew Malcolm much better than Dr. King. But Malcolm was a faithful man, great loving person who really loved black people. And then one of the most courageous persons I've ever known. Courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can't be consistently kind, consistently fair, merciful, just, loving. You cannot. Malcolm, having said that all whites were blue-eyed devils, all this whites are that, he went to Mecca and he came to West Africa and he said, I have met white-skinned, blue-eyed men who I've openly called brother. I was wrong. Now, it takes a great deal of courage to say that, even when the person feels that they were wrong. I see this today. People who don't believe what they say, but because they have the habit of saying it and are known as saying it, they're afraid to say, listen, everybody, you remember what I said last week? I don't believe that. So among other things, his courage and his exquisite sense of humor. Young people should be reading. Read the books. Read the books.
Historian Robin D.J. Kelly wrote, Malcolm X has been called many things: Pan-Africanist, father of black power, religious fanatic, closet conservative, incipient socialist, and a menace to society. The meaning of his public life, his politics, and ideology is contested in part because his entire body of work consists of a few dozen speeches and a collaborative autobiography whose veracity is challenged. Malcolm has become a sort of blank slate on which people of different positions can write their own interpretations of his politics and legacy. Many people who interpreted his message of extreme measures and self-defense condemned Malcolm X for initiating the more violent stance of the movement. They believed his legacy prompted violence that stemmed from anger of his assassination. Groups like the Black Panthers formed soon after, utilizing his philosophy of gaining freedom by any means necessary as a justification for their cause.
The difference, I would say, between the civil rights movement of 1954 to 68 and the Black Power movement was that the civil rights movement sought equality with whites. and it was a middle-class movement. The Black Power movement assumed equality of person and merely sought the opportunity to express that equality by saying we are a proud people. We don't need you to tell us that. Our kinky hair is glorious. Our black skin is something we're proud of. And we are who we are. Now we merely seek to express that.
You, young man, you come here. You're a Negro.
No,
I am your teacher. You are a Negro.
no,
Suppose I threatened to beat you, what would you say? Aren't you a Negro now?
no.
What are you?
I'm black and beautiful.
What is your nationality?
My nationality is Afro-American.
Suppose I had some money in my pocket. Suppose I gave you $1 to say that you're an American Negro. This is money now. Money talks. Money talks. This dollar. And if you don't say it, you don't get it. You're an American Negro, aren't you?
No,
You won't have any money. You know you need money, don't you?
yeah,
You need money to live, don't you?
yeah.
All right. All you have to say, Leon, is that you're an American Negro. Aren't you an American Negro? Are you an American Negro?
No,
What are you?
I'm black and beautiful.
What's your nationality?
My nationality is Afro-American.
Very good, man. Keep it up. Go sit down.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. You know, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate, you should ask yourself who taught you to hate being what God gave you. We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
This past year, there has been a resurgence of discrimination against African Americans by the police force, starting with the well-known death of Michael Brown, a college-bound 18-year-old by a white police officer. The incident ultimately uncovered deep and existing problems not only in Ferguson, Missouri, but in America. The reaction of rioting in response to police shootings is something that has not changed since the 1900s. Despite racial progress, the fact is that people of color are directly targeted and punished in a much more aggressive way than white people. For example, in New York City, where minority groups make up more than half of the population, 80% of the NYPD stops were of blacks and Latinos, and 85% of them were frisked. This is the evidence that suggests maybe the work of the late Malcolm X isn't quite done. Maybe it's time for the next generation of young people to take a stand. As a whole, we can stop stereotyping individuals. We can learn to defend people who might not look like us. And just like the Black Power movement, we can exercise acceptance of America's diverse cultural pride.